Hello guys, and welcome to the Niger Data Platform. My name is Owusu Yeboah. I'm a data analyst and facilitator at Finest Skills Hub, located in Accra, Ghana. On a couple of occasions, I found it inadequate to rely solely on Excel's default chart templates in analyzing and visualizing my insights in dashboards. However, due to Excel's flexibility, it is possible to create my own custom charts which better visualize these key performance indicators in my dashboard. In today's session, I'm going to take you through techniques you can adapt to create your own custom charts, which will better visualize insights for you in your dashboard. So if you are ready, join me so that we can build custom charts together that give better meaning to your dashboard. Thank you. This is going to be the dashboard we're going to use in learning some of the techniques we can use in creating custom charts in Excel. So before we start, I want to just take you quickly through the dashboard and what it does. So this is a personal finance dashboard, okay, that helps an individual track their finances, that's income against their expenditure, against targets they've set for either income and expenditure as well. So over here, we have the timeline. This is like a slicer. It allows you, for dates, it allows you to slice your analysis based on dates or time period. So once I select particular time period, all the charts and information linked to this particular slicer timeline will update automatically. So in this case, I have all my key indicators connected to this timeline. So once I select, realize that pretty much everything changes to reflect the particular month I have selected. Okay, now over here, we have what we call the cash position chart. It's simply a loading chart I created using bar charts. So over here, we have a minimum balance for the period selected and a maximum or target amount for that period, and then what the current cash balance is. So once I select, let's say in December, you realize that the maximum and the minimum readjust, as well as the current cash position also adjusts. So this is a very dynamic way to show the current position you have for a particular key indicator against targets. The same goes for this one. This is an expenditure gauge. It's a combination of a donut chart and a pie chart to create a gauge that measures your expenditure against the target. So my current expenditure is over here showing us 4,854. And then this is a breakdown of my target. So this position of my target is the good point all the way to the bad point, broken down as 20% of target each. So when I select this in May, it shows that I'm doing around 80% of my target expenditure for the month. So that's what this does. And then over here, we have a calendar chart. And then this calendar chart basically shows your top 5 expenditures for the month of May. So once you select a particular month, it's going to pinpoint which days that you spent the most in that month. Now, this is done using a bubble charts as well as creating a calendar in Excel. Then we have our normal bar charts in Excel. Then these are just cards that are connected to figures calculated in Excel. So the goal of this session is basically going to learn how these 3 custom charts were made so that we can use that technique, learn it, create our own custom charts that better visualize our key performance indicators in our dashboard. So if you are ready to do this, please switch with me to your work for this session. So this is mine. So we have these 2 already done because they are pretty much simple to do and straightforward. What we're going to do is try and recreate these 3 custom charts so that they fill up this position. Okay, first we're going to do is to try and create the expenditure gauge. Okay, now when you come to the expenditure gauge sheet, you have the data that you need to use for this chart. You have the period, you have the target amount for that particular period, and then the actual amount for that particular period. So what we're going to do is we're going to create the chart so that for a particular period we select is going to give us the target amount and the actual amount, which will serve as the series for the chart we're going to create. But before we do that, we first need to create our timeline. Okay. So we need to create this that allows us to select a particular date, and the charts will feed on that. So I'll come back here to create my timeline. What I need to do is to first create a date table. So I can do this anywhere. I'm going to my calculation sheets. I'll create a free space over there. And all I need to do is to just create a table called dates. I'll list the very start period of the timeline. So my timeline is going to start on 1st January. It's according to my date format. So it has to come with month, day before year. Okay. So once I have this, I select it, Control T to convert it to a date. And I hit OK. Once I do this, I can now upload this to Power Pivot. So come to Power Pivot and add this to the data model. So once my table has been uploaded into the data model, I can take advantage of the components of the table to create a calendar table in the data model. Okay, so this calendar table will not sit in my Excel. It's just going to sit in the data model, and I'm going to rely on that to create a timeline. So you come to design to create your table, come to date table, and come to new. Once you select new, Excel is going to go through the entire data model and find the lowest date point and the highest date point and create a calendar table from that. So once it's done, we have our calendar table, and that's all we need for the data model. So I can switch back to Excel. So once that is done, I'm now going to insert my timeline. So come to insert, come to timeline, data model. I'm going to select it from the data model. So open. This is coming from my calendar table. So more fields, and I select dates. Hit OK. And there you have it. That's my timeline. So now I have a timeline that allows me to select and filter my data across a particular duration. But then what I need to do, most importantly, is to harvest the output of this timeline in Excel so that the charts I'm going to create will run on that output. So let me cut this and take it to my expenditure gauge. I'm going to paste this here. So Control V. So this is my timeline. Now I want to harvest the components of this timeline. What I mean is when I select a particular month, I want it to show in Excel. Okay, so I'm going to write a formula called date selected. And the formula to do this is the cube rank member. So the cube functions are very effective functions that help you to harvest or to pull out data from the data model. So cube rank member, okay. It starts with this indicating the workbook as the connection. Then your set expression is the name of the timeline. So the timeline is just timeline dates. Okay. Then the rank, how many components or which particular inputs do you want? I want the first selected. So I hit this 1 and enter. And I have this. So August 1st, 2022 has been selected. When I select this, I have September, October, and get data just means it's recalculating to give you what you've selected. So don't be too bothered about that. So once I have done this, what I'm going to do now is to do my calculations. So we have, we want to determine the actual amount selected. So actual amount, target amount. And I'm going to find the percentage difference between the two. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is to do a lookup of this date to give me the actual amount. So I can use XLOOKUP. Okay. Select this as my lookup value. This is my lookup array. And then it's going to return this as the actual value. Now, when I hit enter, I'm going to get an error. And that's because even though I have set everything right, my inputs or my lookup value is not exactly a date. Now, this is something that happens with cube functions. So once you pull something out of the data model with a cube function, it's not actually a value, but then it's a cube member. So you need to convert it into the value state you need. So I'm going to come here and convert this into a date. So using the date value, close this, hit enter, and then I get my value. So this is my actual. I'm going to do same for target amount. All I will do is to copy this formula down, and I'm going to edit it. So select this as my lookup value. This is my lookup array. This is going to be my, and this is going to be my return array. I hit enter and I have that. Okay. Now what I need to do is to calculate the percentage difference between the two, which is simple. That's this divided by this. Enter. I'm going to convert this into percentage. Control Shift percentage. There we have that. So now this is going to be the series for our gauge. Now to create the gauge itself. The gauge, like I said, is in two parts. Okay. We have the background, which is a donut chart. And then we have the gauge, the reader, which is a pie chart. So we're going to create this individually. So first, we create a background. So chart background. Now, based on how you want, over here, my background is color coded to show the position the individual is in terms of their expenditure against their target. So green means good. If you spend around this region for the month, that means you did very well. This is also not bad. Here is in between. Here is getting worse, and then here is bad. Okay, so I have 5 colors that indicate where the person has gotten to in terms of their target expenditure. So it's not cast in stone. You can have more or you can have less. You can have just 3 or you can have more. So I choose 5. So all I need to do in creating my background, I need to set 5 of a particular number, any number. In this case, I can use 1. So 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 5 times. And then the other side of the donut chart, because you realize that this is a half donut. Okay, so the other side of the donut chart, which is empty, is going to represent a sum of the others. So I can just do alt equal to enter. And I have this. So this is going to be 5. And then this is also going to be 5. Now I'm going to select this. And then I come to insert. Over here, I'm going to select a donut chart. Okay, so this is going to be my donut chart. The first thing I'm going to do is going to take off the chart title, going to take off the label, and then I'm going to edit my donuts. So to edit this, Control 1. So you need to select the donut, Control 1. I'm going to reduce the donut hole. Okay, that's perfect. And then I'm going to turn it. Now to turn this, I'm going to use the angle of first light to around 270 degrees. Have something like this to turn it over his head. Okay, so once this is in place, all I need to do is now set the color codes. So the first thing I'm going to do is to take this particular color off, which is the green bit. So come to fill and change this to no fill. Okay, you can change it there, no fill. Then I'm going to select each component and change them. So this is going to be my green component. So here, the green. So this is from good all the way to bad. Okay, so now with that in place, we've created the background for our expenditure gauge. Now what we need to do is to create the gauge that reads the position we are in terms of our expenditure to target. So I'll come here, call this a chart gauge. Okay, so what I'm talking about is basically this reader. How are we going to create this? Now this happens to be a pie chart. So when I select this, realize that we have a pie chart over there. So There are several ways to approach this, but I like to approach this mathematically. Now, we all know the circumference of every circle is 360 degrees. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a circle of three main parts. Okay. Now, the main and important part is the gauge. That's what you see. But there are two other parts which pull and push to move the gauge. Okay. So I'm going to have the first part, which is 180. The second part, which is the gauge, which is 1. And the last part is going to be the sum of is 360 minus the sum of these two. So sum, I'm going to select these two, hit enter. So at the end of the day, these three should sum up to 360. Once I have this in place, what I'm going to do, okay, is to create my pie charts. So with this in place, I can select the values, Alt F1, create a simple bar chart for me, column chart actually. I'm going to come to format, come to chart design, come to change chart type, and select pie charts and hit OK. So this is going to be my chart. The first I'm going to do is take off the header, and then I have the pie chart itself. Now you realize that the one representing the gauge is pointing downwards. What I need you to do is at 0, I need to point to my left. Okay, so I'm going to move this 90 degrees. So I point to the left at 0, and as it reads all the way to 100 to my right hand side. So you select the chart like we did for the first time, Control 1, come to angle of first slice, and I'm moving this 90 degrees, enter. So once I do that, you realize that now I have my gauge to the left, and this is going to read all the way to the right. So from good all the way to bad. Okay, now how do we create this moving effect? So what we need to do is basically make these two numbers reduce and increase at the same rate so that it moves the chart. So the simple way of doing this is moving to the bottom one, equal to 180 multiplied by, into brackets, 1 minus the percentage difference, close bracket, hit enter. So now the gauge has read 47 degrees, and you can see it over there. So once you have that, all we need to do now is to change the colors of the chart. So I come here, okay, select my donut chart. This is the blue part. I'm going to make a no fill. Okay, and then I can do the same for the ash bit, no fill. I'm also going to make sure the entire chart itself has a no fill, no background. So I have something like this. So once I have this, I can drag this upwards a little. Okay, just try and gauge it a little. Okay, so with that, I can now test my my charts to see if I'm on track. So when I select August 49, not bad. Select this 91, and then when you select the first for the first time, when you select any data point on the timeline, you realize that it's reading, and that's why you have getting data. So that's what you see. But when you select again, it doesn't happen. Okay. So I think this is good. 22% is fine. Okay, with that in place, now I can edit this to make sure that my gauge is well colored. So I select my gauge, come here and we'll change the color to black so it stands out. And I can also increase the figure to, let's say, 2.5. So the gauge is a little thick while reading. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is input a circle over here just to make the gauge look a little clean. So shape, circles, and I'm going to put a circle right here. Okay, try and eye gauge this to make it Position it in the center. Good. That is not center. So move that a little to the right. Good. Okay. Yes, that's good. And I'm going to make this a black fill, shape format, fill, make the black, and then no outline. Good. Okay, so once I have this, that's basically it. The last thing I need to do is now bring the labels for my chart so that it indicates the label of the particular amount selected. Okay, so we realize that this pie chart is coming from this place. So if I indicate labels, this is what I get. Is that okay? But these are not the labels I want to show. I actually want to show this as the target amount alone as the label. So what I'm going to do is going to position myself just next to my gauge and equate it to the target amount like this. And then I'll select any of the labels, come to value from cells, okay, and select a range. And this range is going to include the cell above and the cell below, which are empty. And I hit OK. Once you do that, what you need to do is now uncheck value, leaving the 5,000, leaving the 5,000. The 5,000 actually is the target, so we're going to reset this to the actual, like this. Good. Okay, so once we have that in place, we're going to edit this a little. The shortcuts, Alt-H-K, and then because we are taking values for numbers, so this is actually a more appropriate way. We use Alt-H9 to take away the decimal points. Okay, so we have this, we have our numbers. I'm going to drag this out of the way, so it stands out like this. Okay. So now when I select a particular amount, I should be fine. Try and set this up later. Okay. Bring this down. Okay. So this is going to be our gauge. We are done with this first bit. So once we are done, what we're going to do is we're going to group these two. So first, I'll come to Format, No Fill. Okay. And then I'm going to select all the components of my charts. So this, and then that. Come here, select group as one chart. So once I have that selected, let me take off my outlines. So I'm taking out the outlines for both of them. Format, shape outline, none. Okay, so with that selected, I can now cut this as 1 unit, and then I'll bring it to my dashboard, and I'll paste it here. Okay. Okay. Seems we still have the chart outline over there. That's no problem. So all you need to do is select the chart, Control-1, come here, come to border, and select no line. And that should be fine. Okay. Also going to make the grid, the label white. So come to home. I'll change this to white. So it stands out in the dark background. Okay. So we have our first chart created, which is the expenditure gate. Very simple. The next we're going to do is to create our loading charts. So this happens to be our loading chart. What our loading chart seeks to do, it seeks to compare our current cash position to a maximum and minimum balance that has been set. Okay, so we're going to use that data we have to create this chart. So come here, coming back to our sheet, we're going to loading charts. We're going to use this data to create our loading chart. Okay, so like you said, we saw from the other side, we have a period, we have a maximum balance set for that particular period, and the minimum cash balance we want to hold at that particular period, and what our actual cash balance happens to be within the period. Okay, so for this, I'm going to include some extra columns, Alt HIC. Okay, we have that in place. Good. Now let's bring our timeline. Copy this, let's cut it. Let's bring it to this point. Okay. First thing I'm going to do is write my formula for the date selected. So dates selected is going to be date value of cube rank member. This workbook. I'm going to set the expression to the name of the timeline. Timeline dates, and then 1 for the input I have selected, and this for the date value function. Okay, and I'm going to convert this to a date, so Ctrl+Shift+3, and I have this as the date selected. When I select September, it should reflect over there as September. Wonderful. Now to calculate the components of my charts. So the components of my charts are basically the maximum balance, the minimum balance, my actual cash balance, cash balance, and then another thing we need to include is what we call the background of the charts. Okay, so these first three we can calculate, which is going to basically be an X lookup value. I think I'm going to log this. My lookup array is this. I think I'll lock it as well. A return array is the maximum balance. Okay. I hit enter and I have this. Now this is formatted as a date, so I'm going to convert this to a value. So Ctrl+Shift+1. I should have this. That's fine. I can copy this down, Ctrl+D. Okay. I'm going to change the return array from this to that. And for the actual, it's going to be this. Okay. So now I have my maximum balance, minimum balance, and actual balance. So when I select a particular period, this figure should change and reflect for that. Okay. So we have these calculated. Now to the background. So to demonstrate, like I said earlier, these are bar charts which have been rearranged to make them look like a loading chart. So the white portion you see is actually what we call the background. Okay, so the background of the chart. At every point in time, the chart should not exceed the background. Okay, the chart can get to the maximum, it can go beyond the maximum, but it should not exceed the background. So what we're going to do here is to use a formula to calculate that. So the background is going to be the maximum value in the series. So we're first going to find the maximum value currently in the series. So all three values. Okay. And I'm going to increase this value by at least 10%. So 1.1. So whatever the maximum value is, we are increasing that by 10% to make sure that at every point in time, the chart fits within our background. Okay. So we have this in place. So these are the components we need to create our loading chart. So what we're going to do is we're going to select this. Okay. Alt F1. Come to chart design. Come to change chart type. Okay, now we're going to use a bar chart. But then we're not going to use this cluster bar chart. We're going to use this cluster bar chart, which is each of them as a different series. Select that and hit OK. So we have this. So once we are done, we need to format our chart. So we're first going to take off the title, take off the label, take off the grid lines. Okay, so we have something like this. I'm going to take this off as well. And we have something like this. So what I'm going to do is to format this a little before I kind of rearrange them. So this is going to be my background. I'm going to give it an ash fill. So Control-1, fill, here, a slight ash fill, something like this. It's good. Then this is my actual. It's going to be blue. So blue, like this. This is my minimum, and this is my maximum. These two are not going to show. Minimum and the maximum are not going to show. It's just going to be my background against my actual against my background. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the data labels of the minimum and the maximum at this point. Okay. I'm going to use a data callout. Okay. Now once I have the data callout, I right click on that and I change data label shape. I'm going to use this as my data label. Okay. Now you need to make sure you set it right above the minimum. Okay. I'm going to call this the minimum balance. You have to make sure you set it at the right point, else any further reading is going to change it. Okay, so let's test this. Let me change this. Okay, this is the same period. I need to go to another period, 2021. Good. Okay, so I think it's working fine. So all I need to do is now just edit this a little. Come to fill, change this to blue fill, and then I'm going to change the fonts to white, something like this. Good. I'm going to do the same for the maximum balance as well. So I come here, bring the data label, but I want data label. I want a call out data type. Once it's here, I right click, change the data label to a down pointing shape. I'm going to reset this over here. Now all I need to do is to highlight this and change this to maximum balance. Okay, so this is going to be a blue fill against white fonts. So I'll change this to white. And we have something like this, which is good. Now what we're going to do is now to take off these colors. So I select this, no fill for minimum. I always get this wrong. Select this and no fill for maximum as well. Okay. With this in place, what we can do is Control-1 and a series overlap. Okay. Now we have done a series overlap. So now all of them have been arranged against each other with a series overlap of 100. Now we need to bring our actual chart or actual balance chart forward. Okay, so to do that, you right click on your chart, go to select data. Okay, and we are going to move the actual balance down. So it becomes the last value over here in this list. By doing that, it comes forward. Is that okay? So now we have the actual balance, we have the minimum balance. Let's just take this up. Okay, let's first reset this so we don't have to edit this several times. So set this way. Good. Before we do the resetting, take this up. Same for this. You just need to drag it up. So double click, drag it up. Okay, so we have this in place. Last thing we need to do is to indicate how much the actual balance is. So when you select the actual balance, click on this, come to data labels. We're going to use an inside. We're going to use a center. I think a center is more appropriate. Select the figure, text format, fill. We're going to use white. We have this. So let me bring my timeline down here. Let's test this and see how it's working. Good. Nice. So I think it's working very well. Okay. So the next thing we need to do is to introduce our percentage. So this is a percentage of the actual amount against the maximum balance set. Okay, so we want to see how much of the maximum balance we've achieved so far. So I'm going to insert, and I'm going to insert a circle first. It's going to be over here, like that. Nicely is done. Okay, and then the next thing I'm going to do is first set the color to the right color type. Okay, darker color to fit this particular blue. The next thing you need to do is to insert your shape. Okay, so I'm going to use a rectangle for this, for the value in question. So the rectangle is going to show the percentage achieved in terms of actual to maximum balance. Okay, but to do that first, I need to calculate the percentage achieved. So I'm going to do percentage difference. Okay, what is the percentage difference between my actual and my maximum balance? So I have this Control Shift percentage. Okay, and I'll select my shape, which is the rectangle, equal to this. I hit enter, and I have this. So I can format this to no fill right here, and then no line. Okay, and I'm going to change the text to white font. So that gives me something like this. All right. Okay, so once that is done, I can cut this as my second chart, take it to my dashboard, select here and paste this. Neatly done. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is to set the color to this particular font color, the fill color, so that it blends in. So I come to color using this. Good. I have to take off the background as well. So no line, that's the background. Give me something like this. Think I also use a shape outline, so shape effects, shadow, and I use this. Okay, yes. So there we have it. So we have our loading charts over there. Once we select our timeline, this should load as well. Okay. So the last chart to be built is the calendar chart. However, due to time, I cannot build that in this session. I have, however, recorded a short video on how to build a calendar chart. and you can use this link to access that video. I hope you enjoyed the session. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to place them in the comment section and we'll attend to that. Thank you very much for your audience.